Ilibitolaila MK lenu or Numtikwe, combat name. Lamo hae ne ba mitsara ke Sibusiso Martin Nkomo o tswa mane Hama State KwaZulu Natal. O qeta ho re sia ka la bobedi. Ne ke kopa re phameng for motsotso re mo hlomphe. Le ba bang kaofela ba seng ba re siile ba bo rona. Amandla. Long live the undying spirit of Comrade Nkomo. Long live. I think, comrades, get la isho ntwena. Akarunga ka balelapa. Nele mtswalla wa ka ona. Rokopani ko MK. Right up to the end. Comrade wona unantsa sebetsa mo mmusong a le ko intelligence. Last year, after the setup of the GNU, we had a stroke. Ramatarailo Mwana, the comrade Rogers, one of his best friends and comrades, Jabutladla, Lamohaye, Container Mr. Rogers. Arbisana Lena Katar Kavaranyan, Mlatu King Muna. I don't know, I can't take it. I can't take the fact that the ANC enters into a strategic alliance with the DA. Ke ba jwetse ba na le negotiations ka jeno le ba ba DA ba tsebe hore ba re qeta ntse re phela we chulo ntweno nare ke bothata bo you can't accept it but ha ona ntwa ka etsang. His younger brother Sanela was there. Bad. Kore ntho ena e nyane ena ya o dlala ka maphelo a batho ba rona. E reng ya ma-comrade ke keneng ditabeng ore ke tlile kang le tlile ka taba ya o keteka bophelo ba comrade Chris Hani lo mo opola ore ska mo lebala ore Chris Hani o ne le mang. Chris Hani o ne ile moetapele wa rona wa Mkhonto wesizwe our liberation army mo ile ngwe re ile aba leloko la Luturi detachment a pheta ba commander ya Mkhonto wesizwe a fetela ile people's commissar deputy commander aba chief of staff a tshwara mesebetsi kaofela ya Mkhonto wesizwe. The operations chief of operations and others ba sebetsa le yena koding ile yena chief of staff alwana karo South Africa le kantle arana di operations from different places Lesotho ma ile nga etsa base ya kgolo teng alwana ko Zimbabwe. Comrade Botana bua ka taba ena. In the Wanki and Spolilo operations, ile joint military struggle sa ANC and the Zipra forces or ZAPO ya ko Zimbabwe. Balwansa mmuso wa Ian Smith le mmuso wa apartheid. Ya ba moetapele wa SACP a kena ko Central Committee ya pheta re ha ntate Moses Kotane ana sa phela hantle Central Committee ya Communist Party ya mo kgetha hore ebe Assistant General Secretary to Comrade Moses Kotane, Chris Hani. And a le bua hantle ntho ena comrade wena Nick a le bua ka Chris Hani hore ke le aba Assistant General Secretary ya Moses Kotane. Le a ile hore after o tsamaya Comrade Moses Kotane o ile wa kena another commander ya Umkhonto weSizwe e ne le leloko le legolo la makomonisi, General Secretary Moses Mabhida. Chris Hani a sa nka lwana re ne ke le assistant ya Kotane wa o sa keneng la. O ile a emela nako ya hae. After Mabhida wa kena Joe Slow ba mmitsa lekgowa le letsho ga ke re la motsebo le makgowane ba sa tshepe gore ke motho ke lekgowa le batho ba batsho ne ba sa tshepe gore ke lekgowa kore makgowa ba mmitsa gore ke the white pimpernel. Ba batsho ba re o Joe Slovo dithakazelo tsa hae di reng, direto tsa hae di reng, banana o na le direto tsa Sotho because makgowane ba mmatla haholo a ba shapa haholo a lwanela tokolo ya batho ba batsho ba sa tshepe gore motho o etsang tjena ke lekgowa. Kanti it's our own General Secretary, Comrade Joe Slovo. After and of course wa kena Martin Thembisile Hani o ne re mmitsa gore ke Christopher. Chris ne le lebitso la abuti wa hae o ne a le sebedisa gore a kgone o tsamaya underground a bale mmuso wa makgowa wa nna a batlana a sebedisa lebitso la abuti wa hae. Mara reng comrade ka jeno a re leboa e reng ke dumedisa di-veterans tsa rona tse teng mona, ke lebetse ba dumedisa, my apologies. Le lona kaofela ba kgonne ho fitla mona le bana ba teng mona ra leboa le be teng le tlo utlwa history ya struggle sa rona haholo ya ntate ona ba reng ke Chris Hani o lwanetseng tokolo ya lona. A ke re la tseba gore ultimately a bolawa ka 1993 a bolawa ke ntja ya motho ba reng ke Janus Walus ka mothunya. Janus Walus a emetse makgowa ao a nang sa batle gore batho ba batsho ba itshware ba nke mmuso ma right wing kore ntho ma right wing a yentseng e ne ile expression ya hape ya bao ba sa leng teng ngwana jwale ba sa batleng gore motho o motsho a lokologe a itokolle a ro hlokala a Chris Hani ntate Mandela le baetapele kaofela ba Sympath ba Alliance ba dumellana hore Chris Hani is ka ba statistics ba bang ba bolauweng ke mmuso wa apartheid baetapele ba rona. But because of his seniority, his role in the struggle, his cannot just be any other statistics of violence of apartheid and colonial regime against our people. Ba ro tlamelo bana le letsatsi le le re tlo ya dikgetho ntho eng le ngore for almost 370 years ne re lwane hore batho ba batsho ba kgone ho vouta. Vote ena e tlo tlisa hore ba tshware marapo ko mmuso ibe le rumo gore mmuso ibe le rumo la o tswetsa pele tokolo ya bona. So that's why tlamehile re understand mmuso ka tsela e fapaneng. O na le banana hore mmuso ke pleke ya ho sebetsa ba swabisa bano. Mmuso a se pleke ya ho sebetsa. Mmuso ke pleke ya tlhabollo ya setjhaba. A ile hore o sebetsa ko mmuso mosebetsi wa hao ko hlabolla lo lokolla setjhaba. Yale ya re Sympath Alliance ay hanana lore Chris Hani will never be another statistic ya be se demanda hore re bane le letsatsi la ho vouta. Ke ka ho re nang le April 27 in this country mo e le hore re bitsa Freedom Day mo South Africa. A o ka sheba di-speech tsa mmuso tsa di-president tse di bua ka April 27 yena, a ba bue le ka Chris Hani. On that day, a ba bue. Jwalo ke maikarabelo a rona o re ska lebala hore Chris Hani ke mang le hore o entse eng for South Africa. Mara tje ka ke tjore e ne se ena fela yena na tswetsa pele what had started since colonization came into our country in the between 1498 and formalized 1652. Ke ma Dutch. Jwale kajeno we want to dedicate this anniversary of Chris Hani, this commemoration, unto e re bitsa gore ke self-reliance. Or lona le batho le ikemele, lona working class le ikopanye into action. You must organize yourself into action. Without that organization, your struggle will be stolen by the elites, the political elites that occupies political offices, utilizes these offices for their own interests, not for the interests of the people. But we want you to organize yourself so that you can fight against poverty. You can fight for your own development. Ka o re reng revolution ya rona a iso fele, e sa tswela pele. Re tlamehile re commit with clarity ka maikemisetso le conviction e re nang le yona ya hore re tla tswela pele ka revolution yena until o sena poverty kapa tshotlego ka ro setjhaba sa Afrika Borwa. Re tlamehile re etse jena e le commitment ya bo social kore setjhaba se share wealth ya sona. Advocate king wealth ka Setswana ka speaking moruo, setjhaba se share moruo, se arohane moruo ke bo social. Bo capital ke bo capital ko re di individual di nka moruo wa setjhaba di wetse wa bona. Jwale ha ona le mmuso o e leng hore a o etsa molao wa hore makapitale a kgona ho nka moruo ka semolao, mmuso o no tlamehile o ntshiwe tulong. O tjhore revolution ya rona ke a o etsa molao wa hore batho ba thole moruo ba kgone ho iphedisa, e seng hore o etswe molao ya hore makapitale ba nke moruo wa setjhaba. Ka mantswe a mang, bo capitale it's organized criminalism where the law serves the interest of the minority at the expense of the majority. The law is used to steal legally. This is what we must defeat in our politics today. So makomonisi le ba leng ka mmuso etsa molao wa setjhaba e seng molao wa protector barui. That is why ubona ona je mmuso wa mathaka o mathisa batho ba zamang ho iphelela ba re ba bitsa hore ke the survivalists ba ranang dispenser shop eng jwalo jwalo. Mmuso wa mathaka o bile o etsa melao, o ka etsa molao for rana dispenser shop o a hlanya. You know, ya tseba o ile ba le koduwa mona hae ya bana ba ile hore ba hlokala bakeng sa hore ba ja dijo tse ile hore di na le poison kapa di expire di ba bolai jwalo jwalo. Ke competition ya barui. But generally that sector ya economy, in the absence of a government committed to the well-being of the people apart from rhetorical words, is the only survival processes of the working people. batho ba ikemetseng. Jwale wa tlameha mmuso o bane le policy ya ho mathisana le batho ba zamang ho survivor. Kuri nana informal sector, because pastor shop di fall under informal sector in our communities. I wait to win next mode pastor shop. O tla utlwa o sane ba tla ba re a ba ka o thola o tsamaya ka box ya di apple o ile o rekisa ba batla license ya ho rekisa di apple tseno. Ke mmuso le hore se wa tshereana a o sa tseba hore o etseng o matisa di policy tse le hore di protecta barui aba leng sa jwalo ba etsang ba informal sector ba tlo protecta the big commercial sector bu Shoprite checkers. Mtakwali dan group yenu is one of the billionaires ba mo South Africa wa Shoprite checkers. Mmuso o ka gona ho etsa public stores rona re le makomonisi rere ha o etsuwe so ha ona ntwe re mmuso ka se gona ho etsa the public stores in our communities. We can do that. Hape re le makomonisi ke ntwe comrade Tebogo I lead a more central committee. Re batla ho sebedisana le lona re le iketsetse community stores. Di shopo tsa setjhaba tsa mo le dulang teng tsa lona. A re etsa jwalo re tlabe re fetola seemo sa ikonomi ya batho ba rona on the ground. Re ska emela ntho e tlo etsuwang ke mmuso. Re tlamehile re tsebe hore bokomonisi bo social ke ntho e le hore re kemiseditse o qeta tshotleho ya setjhaba le exploitation ya basebetsi mo ba sebetsang teng. In other words, our main task is to end all forms of oppression and exploitation of any human being by another human being. Auna motho a nang le tokelo ya ho tshotla. So that's what we are fighting against. Jwale politiki ya mo hae mo South Africa e excluda batho ba jwalo. Ke ka ho re reng ba komonisi take your central role, your main role, and fulfill this mission working with the working people on the ground. But mona Chris Hani comrade meile o mong wa baetapele ba rona ba tshepaetseng haholo ebile mo hae mona o na tumme haholo ka mora wa Ntate Mandela. Se ebile taba ya hore hape ba sa batleng bokomonisi ba bane le idea ya hore ba tlamehile ba mmolaye hobane ba tseba hore yena a ka nka mmuso South Africa ena e tlo tjintja. Ona jwale phetoho e teng bakeng sa hore science doesn't accept lack of change. In other words, I'm trying to reach the audience, Comrade Tebogo, so I can't bua skwa holo mo ile rutletse batho ba setjhaba. But the point I'm trying to make gore science gives us a process of continuous change. Phetoho e tla dula e le teng. Le ha o sa etse letho phetoho e ba teng. That's why re CPI emi fela e a rusa. E sa etse next ntse e emi mona ntse e shapwa ke moya jwalo jwalo. E a fetoha e rusa. It's a process of change. So ona le ba banana hore phetoho tse teng di enough for setjhaba sa rona. No, phetoho tse teng ha di enough. Di phetoho tse le hore le ba sa etse next je ka sa etse next di a etsa. That's why we are doing regression in science. Aggressiveness, regression. Process of moving forward and process of going back. When you see the level of unemployment in our communities, you should know Muso, what to lay out mata ikonomi. Obani ueta mlao for barui, Muso tamele unke mat. O kono disciplina barui bana. jwale barui mo South Africa se ba tella and le political party tsa bona di a tella jwale ka DA a ba sa hlompha le batho ba a ba sa hlompha setjhaba working class ba tella fela obane re a ba dumella jwale re tlamehile re iqete ntwena hore re dumelle batho ba re telle tjena mo South Africa after re lwanne jwalo ba etapele ba tshwarana le Chris Hani ba lwanela tokolo ya setjhaba sa rona. So makapitale ha mmolaile hantle Chris ba tseba hore ntwena it will stop the momentum of democratic and radical transformation ya society. But ra tseba hore batho ba rona ba ile ba itshwara ba mamela leadership ya bona ba demanda democracy gore ba ska lose focus wa ntwe go lona ile demanda democracy re bana le democracy re ipuse jwale ra ile boga ntwenu ba ile ba itshwara batho ba rona ba demanda justice ba demanda hore lefatshe la bona le khutlele matsong a bona ba demanda economic liberation jwale ra kena mmuso re na le democracy haina development. So in other words, we have democracy without development. Development it's necessary because of the necessity of change. As the development e ka transforma maphelo a batho ba rona jwale bo radipolitiki ke ba radia ba sheba ntho eno e tsalang ba bue ka yona as if it's a major achievement ya democracy. No, we don't accept that. Re tswa mo central committee ya rona e rile revolution ya rona e stakile ya ba itse revolution ya rona e stakile comrade Lekoma no le teng mo no local central committee aka o bitsa ka lebitso ba bang ba bitsitse man bishop o ntshwarela o bohlokwa mo makomonisi mshapeleng matso o bohlokwa ha o la tsena the excluded, the victims are what the communists are about. We are for the victims. So I can exclude like a post. I can recognize it. Let me appreciate it because it was excluded. So all the excluded here, all of us are the excluded of the democratic change. No, democracy. No. Our democracy in 30 years, but what to pay. As you know, yeah, shorter. Joale, ke ka o rona re makomonisi re itseng ntho ya pele re batla o tseba le hore Chris Hani o bolaiwe bakeng sa eng o etswe ntho e re tsware ke inquest re nako e teng ke nako e jwalo hore inquest e etsiwe ka Chris Hani hape re kgone ho tseba transparently hore o etsetseng ke bo mang ba ne ba le involved ke bo mang ba financing o bolawa Chris Hani ke bo mang ba benefitileng politically and economically o bolawa nga Chris Hani the network tse ne di le teng tse di sebedisitsweng tsa mo hae le tsa international tse entse hore ntho e etsahale ke tse feng re buile hangata re le makomonisi re bontsha hore for instance in the initial investigation wa hlaela hore bullet e molaileng kapa sethunya se molaileng le silence ne di tswa ko Amaria Defense, South African Defense Force ya Mabu o kapa ya Makgogo jwale bopaki bono a bo so hlaelle ke ka hore itse re batla inquest o tsebala hore o etsaetse eng obane batho ba molaileng o yane wa bona Clive W. Lewis ine le leader ya ma conservative party ya ma reactionary ya mo South Africa a tshwanang le bo Afri Forum ba ka jeng le bo Solidarity ba ka jeng ke ma reactionary forces bana Clive W. Lewis o ile a etsa parole medical parole ba montsha ka medical parole re opposite ra iluza ko constitutional court aba qeta o mo fa parole a etsa film kapa documentary a bontsha hore ntho a yentseng a ka fiwa monyetla gape o tla ipheta ga ona remorse advocate remorse ke nka Setswana a ba itshole a itshole ya jwale ya re o mong gape le ena ra opposa release ya hae kapa tokollo ya hae mo tronkong ka parole ra be re ya constitutional court re le makomonisi a re fitla mo constitutional court ba mo lokolla ebile ba bua maaka ke bua jena because ne ke le teng ebile re tseba tse ding tsa dinnete ba re mthakona ene re le ra opposa ntwena ko court ba ska re mamela ba mamela le menemene le ba reng ke Janus Walus mulai onu o ile a ngola lengolo le re sa le tsebeng a re o le ngolletse rona le Ausdimpo molekane wa Comrade Chris Hani e le gore Ausdimpo nakong e a buang ka yona hayo mo South Africa o ile ko Cuba o invitwe ke ma-Cubans ba re e tla o tlo phomola obane ra bona re you are hard batho bana ba o lwantsha ba batlo o bua ka dinnete ra bona re ka nnete o mosadi o tshwereng thipa ka bohaleng empa re tla mo Cuba o tlo ba le matsatsi a phomolo a ya ko Cuba batho ka bana ba ngola lengolo ba le kenya ko dipampiring tsa process ya parole re ba jwetsa gore motho o na le matlang hayo a ba qeta constitutional court ya e re lengolo le na le legitimate rona re na le pelo tse kgopo a re kgone ho leballa batho so ra ilantsha ntwenu ba mo lokollotse Janus Walus o ile ko Poland mo a tswang teng a fitla mono batho ba ko bona ma right wing a lefatshe la ko Poland ba mo amohetse ke ka hero ha qeta le yena a etsa filimi a re ntho a yentseng a ka ba ka fuwa monyetla hape o na tla ipheta so wa bontsha re bourgeois democracy bourgeois law ena le limitations tse kana jwale comrade Chris Hani o na bua hantle comrade Botha o quote-ile haholo ntho e skipa se apereng ke comrade Madoda Sambata our PS sena le quote ya Chris Hani a bontshang gore bo social ke eng o na bontsha gore bo social bona a ya tlameha ntho e sophisticated e buang ka yona o tloba batho ba re makomonisi a bua ba complicated no a re ntho ena ya bo social gore batho ba bana le matla like all batho ba bana le matla a re batho ba bana le metsi a hlwekileng a ona batho ba bana le tsa maphelo batho ba bana le ba baholo ba phile ka dignity a qetare gore re fedise difference ya rural area le urban areas ka development and hape batho ba rona ba thole thuto mang kapa mang a thole thuto jwale ona jwale re na le mmuso e le gore o hloleha ho fa batho ba Afrika Borwa thuto basic thing ke ntho e le re proud ka yona some of the achievements but a re bua nnete ra hloleha jwale batho ba rona ba batlo understand re a hloleha because I also understand the concept of rolling out education. Banana education, this formalized institution. And for a liberation movement that understood this thing, I can just understand now why we lock ourselves in bourgeois bureaucracy to roll out proper education system in our country. For instance, this can be an education center during the week. Route 1, for what was SABC. Education center for different programs. Or what was on the weekend. Ricaruta what Varona Mona, Upea. Wait until say Papa Fapani. Tell her Bakahona with Piri Sakaton. And many others. Jwale rona re emetse formalism. Formalism at the same time doesn't absorb all those that it has educated or so-called educated. That's why we even have what in other countries are very scarce skills, even in this country, like dingaka. Re na le dingaka tsa go fapana mo South Africa tse sa sebetseng. Re kopane le mokgatlo wa dingaka SAMATU, union ya dingaka tsa mo South Africa. After ne ba entse march wa dingaka tse sa sebetseng kapa batho ba sebetsang tsa maphelo ba sa sebetseng, di-nurse, clinical technicians jwalo jwalo, dingaka tse senang mosebetsi. Setjhaba sa rona se kula tjena. Jwale re sebetsa le bona. O re etse processes in our communities to have access to people's health. At the same time, mmuso we encourage or we implement the national health insurance. Elore maburwana kapa makwana alinko DA ai hana ntwena obane bona ba hlokometswe ke di medical aid. Una le statistics e bontsha di medical aid tsa mo South Africa, almost 72% ya di medical aid di hlokometse batho ba basweu makgolo, and only 10% ya batho ba batsho ba mo di medical aid. Jwale because batho ba 10% ba batho ba batsho ba le mo di medical aid ke ba ba ibitsang ma-intellectual, ke ba ba ruteileng, ke ba ba leng the leaders in different areas, ba ipona ba le kaone ho feta batho ba bang, ba hana setjhaba sa rona se thola tsa maphelo across the board, universal health care. Re a ibatla universal health care ena, national health insurance, o re fihlelle o mang kapa mang, e be free at the point of service. Ke national health care ya rona, free at the point of service. Ha o kula o kene sepetlele, o kene to any clinic, any healthcare center, o ska botswa hore o na le bokae hore o hlokomele, o attendiwe. After that mmuso o nke maikarabelo a seno. That's why o batala a single national fund under the Department of Health or government to make sure that we roll out the national health insurance for our people. In 20 negotiations, why should we subject ourselves to the interest of capital of the DA to force our movement to negotiate this question, the health of its own people? We should not accept that. There are certain things that, as a liberation movement, are red lines. The health of our people should be one of those red lines. And when we implement issues regarding the health of our people, we should not negotiate with any other one. But warna ba compromiser all the time. Because bungata ba bona abasoka bakula and baska ba le access ya dipetlele tsa maemo a hodimo. So this is a big issue e lo ra elwanela ona jwang. But rona re batla hore in taking forward this vision ya Chris Hani ya bo social, the basic needs le di rights tsa batho ba rona di ska sebediswa je ka di commodities, ntho tse lo re di a rekuwa. A tro bona commodity ke ntho e lo re o kena ko shopong wa e reka. Jwale maphelo a lona le ditukelo tsa lona di ska tshwana le ntho tse lo re di a rekiwa mo shopong mo e leng re house na chelete a gone o ba le ditukelo tsa hao tse felletseng. So ke ka hore ntho e tshwanang le matlo, healthcare, thuto, metsi, electricity, transport, di tlamehile di garantiwe ke mmuso. These things should not be sold for profit, should be the rights of society. Ke ntho e etsahalang mafatsheng a ipitsang hore a hlabolohile. Ebile re re matla a economy a fiwe democracy. It cannot be right that under democracy economic power remains in the hands of the minority. Economic power is not democratized. Why this section is an exclusive section? We want democratization of economic power in this country. And the central role of the state becomes critical in order to enforce democratization of the economy. Therefore, we must break up monopoly stating and advance people's ownership through other forms of ownership. People's ownership, for instance, cooperatives, the state, worker control, people's control. It is not just one way of the economy. Where am I capital? As a tusalim musona, so carry economy tlamele sebediswe fela ka bo capital. Maga. No, there are alternatives. We can build people's economy. That's what we are going. That will be one of my last points as I'm speaking here. The question of building people's economy on the ground. At the same time, we must promote collective well-being over greed, status, or personal enrichment. Mo thola ngore o hlomphiwa motho o nang le ditšhelete o sena ditšhelete ha a hlomphiwe. And ntho e ke ntho e le re tlamehile re fedise mo South Africa, because in this case, in our country, makgowa ke ona a tshwereng ditšhelete mo South Africa. O tjho hore le ha e le hore lwanetse tokoloho o ntse o hlomphiwa makgowa o feta batho ba batsho hobane batho ba batsho ha ba na ditšhelete. Empa ile bao ba tsebahalang ba ile hore ke bona ba kgonne ho kena ba sebetsa le makgowa se ba na le ditšhelete a ba hlahella ba hlomphiwe tse ka bontate Motsepe a ka hlahella mona le lona kaofela le tla mo hlompha hobane la tseba hore motho ona o na le ditšhelete. Jwale re batla hlompho setjhabeng e be teng kaofela. E ska kgetholla hore ke ya makgowa and ya batho ba batsho ba ska hlomphiwa bakeng sa hore ha ba na ditšhelete. Again, comrades, re tlamehile re fedise ntho ya hore market or Chris Hani, we should not live under the tyranny of the market. In other words, under the dictatorship of the market. Mmuso. Hey, a ke tsebe makomrete a rona ko re ba kena ko mmusong. Ntho e re ba rutileng yona bophelo ba bona kaofela e fella kae? Kore ntho ya hore ba tsebe hore mmuso ha o tlameha o sebeletse market. Market ke ntho e re buang ya hore ha o sena tšhelete ha o no ja. Ha o sena tšhelete because ntho o tlameleng o e je o tlamele o ye ko marketing o ile o reka. Jwale re batla hore mmuso wa rona o tsebe hore batho ba ka iphelela ka ntle le market. Ba ka iphelela ba iketsetse ntho tse le re di tla ba phedisa. Ba ska re ba tla phela hobane a market as long ba kgona o sebetsa. Ke ka o mmuso o tlamehile o nke maikarabelo a bao ba sa kgoneng ho sebetsa. And therefore, comrades, re tlamehile re protect struggle sa rona sa ho tswetsa pele education ya rona, thuto ya rona ya setjhaba, from preschool to university. Ne re leboha mopresidente last after ba launchitse program ya bana ba banyana ba bitsang kindergarten, preschool education. Ntho eno e bohlokwa haholo. It's our early childhood development ba bitsa jwang. Mopresidente o na re ntho ene e tlamehile be re qadile ka yona 1994 a re kena. O bua nnete. Nkabe South Africa e le different ona jwang. But I tjho re ska qala. Re ka qala neng kapa neng. So thuto e bohlokwa haholo. Problem ya ma capital ba utswitse le thuto ya setjhaba ba eketsa ya bona. Jalo lona a sa khona iketsetsa because le capital a le soka le rona o ruteile monna. We bona all style, all start. There's no way in which our people would have lived all this period by pilele by iketsetse e le ditaka. ke ka o re reng re tlamehile re implemented program ya rona haholo e tlo etsang gore batho ba rona ba bana le access to the schooling system kaofela a bona ba rutwe from ba sa le banyane hape re etse sure ntho tse tshwanang le basic income support for batho ba sa sebetseng di ba teng o introduce ntho e re bitsang universal basic income grant e bontshang gore mang kapa mang o na le tokelo ya ho phela ka hlompho and against extreme inequality in our country. In other words, all people have the right to live in dignity. You can't say someone can live in dignity when they have no income. And yet for them to live, they must go to the market to buy bread. Any other thing, food stuff is for sale. So what wants our a crisis in South Africa? Crisis of governance and crisis of the economy. But crisis of governance, ke yona e creating crisis ya economy. Because mmuso o tshaba o kenya matsoho o ba tshwereng moruo wa rona, when actually they should be doing that and controlling that space. Happy comrade, rona mo Communist Party le Chris Hani, Communist Party ya Chris Hani, re ka ro umkhankaso umulukoloko omuhulu wa tokoloho o re bitsa re ke National Democratic Revolution. Ba rona ba ruteile mona peleng kaofela ba di bonitse ba bua ka NDR ba the NDR. Jwale National Democratic Revolution ke ntho e simple e ra hore o fedisa tshwenyo ya batho ke magowa. Ra utlwana? That's the first task ya National Democratic Revolution. O fedisa tshwenyo ya batho ke magowa, to end white racist oppression of the black majority. That's the first task ya National Democratic Revolution. Ya bobedi ku fedisa tshwenyo ya bomme ke batho ba bontate le economy, to end gender oppression and patriarchy, the system of male oppression over women, which is engendered in capitalist economy. Ya boraro, interrelated, ku fedisa tshwenyo ya si economy ke bo kapitale o setjhaba, to end exploitation of the people of the working class by capitalist class. Ke ntho tse tharo tse interrelated tse kgolo tsa National Democratic Revolution. Ya bone ko hana puso ya ka ntle ya maBritani, imperialism. Ke ntho e re bitswang ke National Democratic Revolution. So le lona ba ditaba, and ka leboha le re mametse ka jeno re qadile lata apologies. Le tlamehile le tseba gore ha re bua ka NDR re bua ka eng, ke ntho e simple jwala, ha se ntho e sophisticated. Jwale ha re bua nnete, hlopheho ya batho ba batsho e fedile mo South Africa. Hlopheho ya bomme e fedile mo South Africa. Hlopheho ya moruo e fedile mo South Africa. Boimperiale bo fedile mo South Africa. O tshore a re sa mamela Britain le America na. Jwale o tshong gore mo National Democratic Revolution a re so ye kae batho beso. Re sa qala. The struggle continues, a luta continue. Re sa le hole mo re yang. O tshore we have to appreciate this reality and not sing these praises every day that the political elite want us to sing every single day. Praise capital, praise mark timing on the same spot. Only those commanders of controversies will understand what I'm talking about when I'm talking about mark timing. Mark timing is to march on the same spot without a movement. You get tired for marching on that same spot without a movement. Yes, I want to train a punishment or mark time. We sharpen up and down. Left, one, all the way re bitsa order fela o kgathale o juluke ha ona mo ya ha re qeta re a o tla re bona re no you are tired and everything else re na le mthako na sebetsa ma ante a ile re shapile ka ntwe one mark time jwale ke ntwe etsa la mo revolutioning ya mo South Africa makgowa ba re file fela mark time jwale le mmuso wa democracy o re fa mark time we are marking time all the time I want progress I want anything but we are told no ke progress bana ke la mona mthako o fufuletse o tshore na sebetsa ona le progress a ona progress mona into central committee cho arena progress mo South Africa re khutela morao obane magwa kona ntse nga tshwere and a re bua ka hore magwa kona ntse a tshwere a re tshore because one of the tasks ya National Democratic Revolution ye ya o fedisa thutleo ya magwa o batho ba batho e re committee hape hore re batlo o phela le batho ba teng ka mo South Africa ke ntwe freedom charter e buang comrade Botha na e quote ntwe freedom charter e quote ntwe na hore South Africa belongs to all who live in it black and white re itse ba ba leng teng magwa leng teng a re no wa tibela impa ba tlamile ba accept democracy majority rule ya batho ba re phileng mo re etse a non-racial South Africa e lore batho le magwa ba kopana e be ntwe ile nngwe jwale ntwe eno e ba thata bakeng sa hore batho ntse ba hlotshwa ke magwa mo South Africa so ha re expose ntwe ya racism I sure we are not committed to non-racialism. We are the first non-racial organization in this country. We remain committed to non-racialism. But we cannot accept justification of white racist oppression of the majority in the name of democracy. And therefore, our NDR mo South Africa entse compromise e kgolo. Re compromise le ma capital. Ke bona bankile mmuso wa rona. Ke ka o batalang people's democracy so that karu democracy o bane le development. Re ska ba le freedom e le raina development. Democracy e le raina development. Jwale what kind of society is that? Kore lona le shapa difuba o re lokologi. Impa ha ona tswele pele mo lo. Ya bona ma comrade ba leadership ya province le ba district ai look seta ba ina ya bona a re tsama mo mafikeng since maikeng since re fitlile maobana ditsela ha di tsamae o sinyei kore le mone ke robetse teng ka be ka nka snap sa o bontsha tshinyeo ya ditsela ke ipotsa hore leadership ya mo e reng a itsamaya bona ba phela moyeng kapa jwang wa ma comrade man re ska hloleha tjena how it was something tshwena e busy and re nkile jwetse taba ya mona maikeng mona comrade le tshisa tsinodi ke paki yaka ke tla mkenya o program a ipuelle tshwena bane ke ile ka mo jwetsa isa le minister ya local government nang le tshisa tsinodi na ke le a replace tse comrade Celo Stek oba minister ya local government ke ni ka ro yena comrade le tshisa ne ke ile ko mafikeng maikeng hantle pleke eno ha o tsamaye ditsela di a senyeha di bodile so karawetwe intervention that's almost 2016 Zuma is the president of the country. Man. The mass palace are not there. You are in total tamile di lukise. And or total na di lukise kore rona rinke mai karabelo a democracy and development. Iskaba musonga mai karabelo a democracy o le baleka development. Utu hai una le democratic right to differ with us. So when we differ with you, you continue to do wrong things because I've exercised my democratic right. No, it doesn't work like that. So therefore, that is why, comrades, the 1994 democratic breakthrough, which we called a historic achievement ya o busetsa mmuso wa makgowa ka thoko e be le hore mmuso wa rona wa kena wa batho batsho. That historic achievement is under threat. In fact, it's been reversed. That is why, comrades, we can say here, the very idea of democratic majority rule is in crisis in this country. Not because of its principle, but because the material conditions that have made it wallow for millions today make it us come to this particular conclusion. The democratic majority system is in crisis in South Africa. So we have to look into this thing on how to protect majority rule in our country, because then it is meaningless. That is why batho ba rona ba sa tlayang ba ya dikgethong ba na ya dikgethong hobane ba bona re thuya e ba thusa matla a bona a khutletswe ka thoko o thwa matla ke a mmuso. No, matla ke a setjhaba. Power to the people. And therefore, comrade, democracy ya rona re ska e reduce fela ke bakeng la di votes tse tlang after every 5 years. Mara re tlamehile re save democracy ena, re tiise ebile re defend the majority rule, re build democracy as setjhaba it's rooted in the needs of the people and people's struggles, in the power of the working class and the poor. It's cover an abstract democracy. Kamantswe a mang ba ba etsang di thesis mona o mongwe wa leloko la Central Committee ya rona ka jeno wa graduator ke maobane o ne a graduator e ba doctor ba etsa out of a PhD rubitsa doctor ke Dr. Polibushier ya o qeta o graduator maobane re ka mo pela matsoho ntwena ke achievement e kgolo jwale but ba tshwanang le bopholo how about doctor with terms of abstraction thesis correct idea sure this is the situation that I want to solve, then we have the research to show problem and we solve a jwale mo South Africa democracy is cover an abstraction mo ile batho ba nana or ba ka solve mathata South Africa jwang ba sa tla o setjhaba gore mathata mona a simple. How about a job creation mo maikeng o tla ka o lokisa ditsela o tla ka o etsa batho ba mo bana le matlo a o etsa jwalo o etsa hape mesebetsi, you use all the skills tse re nang le tsona, but you can't wish that thing away and una know somebody somewhere some other time will come and resolve this problem. It can't work that way. So we must therefore, comrade, never accept poverty as normal under democracy. It is not normal to be poor. At the same time, comrade, we must not allow our revolution to be hijacked by opportunism. Opportunism for political positions and everything else. For instance, just as a statement for this process of the revolution we are launching out in our country today as the Communist Party, I have said, on my part, I have no interest to be in government. That's one. I have no interest to be in government. And we will reach a point where I'm going to talk about this question towards my ending. Local government elections. When we have our comrades who are going to contest as councillors, who may be mayors and so forth in various towns, we may have to discuss whether the leader of the Communist Party must go into government. The secretaries, advocate, you call it. We may have to discuss that point. Because sometimes when the leaders are in government, no one is able to make them account. That's our history. Bakena ko musong ba iketse. Motho nana re twa ibuang it's law. No. Ntho o ibuang le leadera a se molao. Molao ko revolution ya rona. And therefore, comrades, this process, your National Democratic Revolution, is only the platform in which our struggle for socialism is being fought. We must appreciate in that way. Mabujwa eye contest at this platform. Aulu week, aulu luko musong, kapa aulu ko mekhatlong ya rona e le hore ha o kopana le mabujwa o batla o tshwana le bona. Ba tsamaya ka wena. akere ba fitla mona ba compete ba fitla mona ba pake koloi tsa bona tse expensive o fihle mo pake ya hao nyana kore ke a o tsamaisa from point A to point B ba o bona ba ra mara wena mona o so fihle mona o tlamehile o tle ka mo rona ro kgona ho palama tse tsa rona Chris Hani o ile a ikgalema ntho ena a re wa tshoha re mohlomong one day ba ipitsang di-liberators ka re o bona o tla hlaela ma-elite a tsamaye ka koloi tse kgolo tsa mabaibai a tlohele setšhaba kore ba sebedise moruo wa setšhaba for bona ke Chris Hani a tjho jwang a re ntho eno ya motshosa ana jwale re tlamehile re tsebe gore a re sebeletse gore re tsamaye ka koloi tsa mabaibai ntho eno a ya tlameya e be jwalo re kemela gore re nke mmuso for setšhaba sa rona re tlamolle setšhaba re feditse tshotlego batho ba rona ba rutege ba be le tsa maphelo o be le thuto setšhabeng re tlamolwe re le setšhaba re be le culture le arts e monate e celebratang di-achievement tsa rona plekena every single weekend e tlamehile e be le gore o na le cultural activities ke swabile ampe gore ka jeno a re etsa mosebetsi ona ga o na le program ya culture mona go a bontsha gore we've been absorbed by the bourgeois system. We must come out of that system ourselves. It starts with us. Of course, comrades, we have rejected this question of the crisis here today in South Africa. Crisis here, poverty. Crisis here, batho ba rona ba unemployed. Crisis here, abasa khona o affordable bophelo. In other words, there's a cost of living crisis. Dijo di a tura, transport di a tura, electricity a tura. Batho ba sa kgona ho di thola ntho tsena. Jwale o na le proposal ko mmuso ya ho etsa VAT, ya ho increase VAT, value added tax. Ke ntho e le hore e taxwa mang kapa mang o rekang something. Jwale value added tax ena re anne rona le makomonisi a re batle value added tax ena. Empa ho se batla rona value added tax. How to lose but value added tax what DA. Totona di two di fapan. DA e protecta ma capital. Aina interest ya chabasaro. Yale ntwe value added tax rejection by the DA. It's only a ploy to weaken the ANC. Rona we have rejected this on principle that it's a punishment for everyone, the poor, because they have to pay value added tax. Every other thing is going to increase because of this VAT thing. So we have said, let's tax the rich. They don't talk about this thing. Company tax, for instance, increase of company tax. That has been decreasing for the last 20 years. No increase in company tax. If Muso Joan was a tax at the rich, Muso tax at the rich. How's our own economy? Because the economy are not refilled. The capitalist minority. So we have to change our approach to this question. Kick our reason, Arriba the value added tax here and reject, but our rejection of this is different from the rejection by the DA. At the same time, comrades, Rehana lintu ebarengi budget cuts. Ubone way to a budget cut, give muso. Unto tse tshwanang le bo health jwalo jwalo. Ke a tseba gore this year, for instance, go to a more healthy, budget e increasitswe, le go education go increasitswe. Ebile batho ba nahana gore a re sena austerity. No, it's not like that. Healthier budget ya healthy e uthwa e increasitswe. Ka mjwetsa le minister wa finance wa tseba. E batla o kwala gap ya basebetsi ba tsa maphelo ba 9,000 ba ile gore since ba tswa ba sa replacing ke ka gore na le health crisis hape mo South Africa. So how na increase? In real terms, there's no increase. It's a deficit increase. Ya personnel in the sector, not of development of the facilities, for instance, that are healthy in our country. Ke ka gore you cannot cut corporate tax, which we call it you are refueling tax for the rich. In other words, you are refueling, you are giving the rich more power when you reduce company tax. You are hitting hard on the working class. So that cannot be the foundation of economic justice by taxing the poor. We are saying, for instance, we continue to see municipal services in crisis, affecting the working class communities. And again, the struggle against corruption, comrade, is not over. The corruption networks still operate both in public and private sector in our country, robbing our people of their services and hope. So you also have this thing, our politics has been criminalized. The criminality is very political in South Africa. Ntwe utlwisa bohloko yena. Jwale lona ma comrade a rona mkhonto wesizwe. Le tseba ntwa. Ntwa e teng ma comrade. A re lo lwantsha ma criminals ba nkile dipolitiki mo South Africa. Ba intimidate di councillora, ba intimidate leadership ya movement across the board. The criminal. Ara tlamare itlwele ntwenu, re tlamele re lwantshe ntwenu and save the African National Congress and our movement as a whole. Le lona ba le ba le intimidator. Don't keep quiet because as a rita o lona. Le tabele re no but this one's forced me. No. E tla o re jwetsa gore ba o intimidator re deal le bona directly, the criminals. We cannot allow the extortionists to take over our country. This thing must come to an end, comrade. That is why, comrade, that is further a reflection of the crisis of capitalism. In the major cities of capitalism in the whole world, the biggest gangs in the whole world are from the so-called G7 countries, America, Britain, Italy, Canada, all of those things. But one thing so only difficult for the people to live and survive in those economies because of corruption. Therefore, we have to deal with criminality in our politics. Without doing that, comrade, we would have a serious problem in our country about fighting crime and corruption in our society. And therefore, we must fight against criminalism in our communities and against corruption. But we are trying to explain here that when you see criminalism in this form, it represents the crisis of capitalism, which means the system has reached its primary rotten stage. And when it is like that, it is festering, everyone gets affected. So it's a system that needs to be replaced by a socialist system, a system that is humane, that its foundation is to resolve the problems of society, not to enrich a minority elite in society. Again, comrades, this year we will celebrate our 70 years of Freedom Charter. And this Freedom Charter once said, there shall be work, security and comfort. This was a commitment that everyone in our country has the right to work, to dignity, and to contribute to the building of a new society. Marasen has no etala obani. The criminals, the capitalist criminals. Capitalism is a criminal system. It has stolen our governance. This is the biggest crisis we have in this country. Capitalism is the source of poverty in our country. But what must therefore be done to fight capitalism and to remove us from this crisis that we face? The first thing is that re tlamehile re age mokgatlo wa bososhale wa basebetsi wa batho ba hlopheileng o mo fatshe. In other words, a powerful socialist movement of the workers and the poor. This powerful socialist movement Ntate Mtsoaledi, Minister of Health, I must indicate my favorite minister in this country. Yeah. What's the bit on that one? Ntate ona, o kile a bontsha, o na le clinic e nngwe ko Joburg ba bitsa re ke Parkland Clinic. Ke sepetlele sa private. One of our comrades, it's a member of parliament, o na tlile ko Central Committee last weekend. A tinye, a robe ya loto. A tswa ko meeting. O na le medical aid ya ko parlamenteng. Ba mo rashisa ya ko Parkland Clinic. O eme 5 hours before a thola thuso. O khutlile mo a kwatile ampe ke nurse ka profession. Yes, ke nurse. O fitlile mo a kwatile ampe. Ntho tseno a di sebetse. Mara ntho Ntate Mtsoaledi na hlahisa kore. Mo le Parkland Clinic. O thola o na le a o fitla mo boarding ya teng. A o kena ko sepetlele ba o bontsha o na le section mo o na le di doctor. Like a went a private appointment. We are doctor ya how whether the doctor eng di ngotsi mono. Wa fitla ore a o ka fitla mo na doctor e sebetsang le bo mme a itsa re ke gynecologist. O ro fitla mo thola in that hospital alone. I think you know about 75 gynecologists in one hospital. Ya private. Are the petrol ka ofela tsa Gauteng, Limpopo, Northwest le Mpumalanga. The gynecologists tse mo di petrol tsa mmuso a di fitli di 70. Mara petrol say one is a private. Sinali up to 75. Si sebeletsa batho ba few fela. This is the wastage of public service. Because bongaka ha se ntho ya tšhelete. Jwale ke a ile re bo capital bo commodifier tlhatlhobo ya motho. They commodify health. That's why these people are running to these private hospitals, because there's money. Of course, this movement wa batho, the socialist movement, o tlamehile hape o expande public ownership, o re setjhaba se kgone ho owner energy, motlakase, energy sector kaofela, healthcare, metsi, transport and other strategic industries. Kopane le makomrade a mangwe before kopano ena e qala, o mongwe wa bona one of our comrades ke engineer ko mining. Hey, o tlo comrade ona rona, comrade so. You know what we do there in the mines? I'm an engineer. These are things that we do. Connecting this and that, massive things. Usebeletsa private sector. So re na le di skill ka rona, capacity ka ro batho ba rona misdeployed, because mmuso ha ona taba ka skill se teng ka ro setjhaba sa rona. So batho ba jwalo a re tlabolla area ya rona. Re ka ba kopa re ka di weekend ba re thuse re le setjhaba, ba sebeletse setjhaba from an engineering perspective for whatever we require that they may assist us with. So re reject privatization le outsourcing. Ntho tse ke buileng ka tsona di etsa hore di projects tsa mmuso di utsuiwe ke ba private. That's why ditsela tsa mona di fedile. They can't even last 2 rainy seasons. That's why di tlamehile di etsuwe ke mmuso. Re tseba hore quality assurance is there, is guaranteed. At the moment, I don't have quality assurance. I met one guy I was with at school with some years ago. Orona, what amona mapaida ntwena lona e tla le hlola. Ke robane I know re hlola ntwena I know monna nna ke a practice ke sebetsa mona construction. A re bona ba mmuso wa ba lona ke ba tseba kaofela di province tsena. Ibile o watch hore ba bang ba easy. A re mara monna re putswetse. Ke ile ka thola construction work mo le defense mo le. Ka ile etsa mosebetsi gwa anya. O re batho ba ne monna ba strict bana. Ha ke re ke etsa layer ya pele monna di inspector tsa defense di a fitla di re check gore layer ena ya comply le agreement ya rona. O re qeta ke re ke second layer ba fitla hape di inspector ba re check mona hore ntho eno a hloka ke bona ke etsa tsela ke qete. Ha se qetile batho ba lona ba fitle ba tlo checka a qeta o mongwe a re ntho ena o ka re ya shotanyana mona morwa wa twat a ke batle mua ka lebitso a re o ka re ya shota mona ke a se ba batla jojo. So we must fight the industrial looting of the state that our capitalist system is actually doing our communities. Re tlamehile re expand community and worker cooperatives mo re dulang teng that should mobilize local production and collective production as well as the buying power of the people mo re dulang teng. At the same time, re implemented ntho tse ke buleng ka tsona like national health insurance, not in a commercial way, as a commercial scheme, but as a public service scheme. At the same time, we develop an alternative to capitalist accumulation. For instance, we can trade amongst ourselves. We can into finance. We can into service delivery. Yarona. It's got drive you akima capital. Okay, capital. That's the most important thing. You are still oppressed by relying on this system, Tama capital, that exclude others and give others. That is why programming comrade Chris Hani ya re thole matlo mo South Africa. Re thole tsa maphelo. Re fedise tlala. What do you call the Triple H campaign? Our Central Committee added Triple H plus W water. It's a revolutionary program. It must be practical and people-centered, people-driven. It must not be a program to be driven by tenders. My comrade, privatization ya metsi o tlo tshore wena a no thola metsi ka ntle le hore o kgona wa reka a o sa kgone wa reka o sa kgona o tshwara pula o tla ipona jale ke bohlanya ba capitalism bo keneng mo mmusong wa South Africa. So ke ka o comrade a re etsa ntho eno o tlo hlokala hore re ithute ka bokomonisi. Mo re dulang teng re expanded the Chris Hani brigade tse teng in our country. Re etse sure re builder batho ba kgonang ho nana from the local level, not ba kgonang ho latela. Na ke batle motho o latelang, ke batla motho o tsebang criticize ntho e ke e buang. Na le mthako mong ke na lo tsamaya le yena so ke le comrade la rona le kgolo le hlwahlwa la o tswa gale. Sometimes I'm not really working on mutual mtakona yale mtoto tsayo ka re wa lahlea o sa bua ka proximity yale a ke batla batho ba latelang but critical thinkers in the community on how to change your living conditions, not how to wait for government to end that. At the same time, re re haritise sebedisano between makomonisi le basebetsi ba ka hare ho di-union le basebetsi ba sa sebetseng le basebetsi ba sebetsang ba seng ka hare ho di-union re sebetsaneng le bona kaofela. Hape re leboge re congratulate basebetsi ba SAMO, basebetsi ba masepala ba winne court case e kgolo haholo against mokgatlo wa rona le mmuso wa rona. Ke ba shapela matsoho, ke a ba otlela matsoho. Wa bona ntho e ba yentseng basebetsi ba masepala, some workers. What you have done, you have shown that arrogance doesn't work. Because mmuso wa rona no bankela tokelo tsa hore ba be political activist just because ba sebeletsa masepala. O kile wa bona o twa ho jwalo. Re ba khalmetsi ra hanra le ska etsa ntho eno. Ba tsama ba be ba isa court. Ba be ba romela ma community rona ko sala ka rona le bona ba oppose ntho ena. Le ba sala ka ra ba jwetsa re le etsang. O ka nkela motho tokelo ya hae ya ho vota. What's I once had a big debate with one of our comrades in exile, Comrade Trevor, in a public debate, Body Campo. It amele rilo vote in 1994. There's something voted something relevant. Jale, re na le debate ya hore le sole le ka participate in the vote now. Ba bang ba re no le sole la tlameha le vote. Nna ke re no le sole le tlameha le vote. We're in the having big debate on both sides. So Trevor Arona wa bona wena o batla o rekisa masole. O batla o ba modlwembe. Masole ha tlameha vote ka hana ka re Trevor. For more than 350 years, re lwanela batho ba rona ba kgona ho thola vote. I'm not going to betray this vote. Now I'm going to vote. So it's the same thing here. Muso, uno so hanela hore ma comrade a rona ba leng ko di unioning ba sebeletsa masepala ba ska participate ho dipolitiki. Ra ileboga, this is an important victory by workers to show that arrogance doesn't pay. No, those workers must now go back and participate. Some of them were removed from the leadership structures of the ANC. Because when I belong to this thing, you can't be elected into this and that particular position. So we welcome this victory by the workers. Jale comrade, re hape, ma branch ya Communist Party, le di structures tsa rona tsa alliance kaofela. Ha ebe di pleke tsa ho bala. Ha ebe di pleke tsa o sebeletsa setjhaba. Ha ebe di pleke tsa o mobilize setjhaba. So in other words, our branches must be places of study. Re-tute re le mo di branching tsa rona. O ska tlo study ya o latela motho. O ska tlo study ya o belonga ho faction. O study how to serve society better. O study how to mobilize the people to be self-reliant. That's the task of our branches. Therefore, with all of this thing, comrade, political education in our structures must not become a luxury. It must become a necessity for all our comrades. And therefore, the struggle against demobilization of society must begin from the branch, as well as the struggle against neoliberalism and ideological drift and shift of our movement. Neoliberalism ke bokapital ba kajeno. Bokapital ba neoliberalism bo ra hore mmuso o rekisa ntho tsa ona kaofela o di fa batho ba private. Jwalo ka metsi, ditsela, electricity, telecommunications, jwalo. Tse ding tse se di rekisitswe. Wa bona ona jwale ntho e bitswa ke spectrum, elephant data. Mmuso so e rekiseditse Vodacom le MTN. A re bua le bona ba re hai, spectrum se sengwe ntse le sa rona, se sengwe se le mo low defense le sponiseng, ntse re stwere. Ke a sheba ke re mara batho bana ba nna ba rutuwa kae ba? Ba sebeletsa makapitale. Jwale re ka etsa data event e free mo South Africa a ile hore mmuso a o dumelle hore o tshwariwe ka nko ke di institutions tsa makapitale bo Vodacom le bo MTN. So data e bohlokwa for development ya setjhaba ona jwale because of the what we call the Internet of Things, wherein internet has become an important tool of civilization. Because of internet, to offer an example. In the past, if nobody access a library nang le dibuka tse ngata lefatsheng, no ya bo London bo America, university tse kgolo, bo Oxford jwalo. We lo ithuta ko teng. Go ra utswa mono ra tseba hore you had access to almost every other thing written. Jwale ona jwale wa ithola ntho eno dutse mo dutseng ka baka la internet. So data any rekang every day should not be that expensive. Should be for free for every citizen in this country. Mara re tla etsa jwang a ile hore re nkile data centers, data industry, re fa capital. 2 weeks ago, Muso no announced a cabinet or Google it Google or what this thing this big American company or Canadian company. It is a big data center in South Africa. The SITA. By which one this SITA? SITA. State Information and Technology Agency. That's South Africa. Reloira, but back a data center in South Africa. Oh, woman. King Karon. musona utswitswe. That's the problem. So we have to make sure that, comrades, our fight against neoliberalism, which is modern day capitalism, di tabakelo tsa mmuso kaofela di tlamehile di be ka tlase ga batho ba private. A re dumelane le yona ntho eno, hobane batho ba private a ba kgethuwa, a ba accountable ho setjhaba, ba ikemetse. Mara why re tlamehile re ba fe di-instrument tsa setjhaba ba di sebedise for their own accumulation? A ba qeta ba ska shebella setjhaba. Setjhaba se shebane le rona ba kgethuweng ba mmusong, se batle dikarabo, re ska tseba ho ba fa dikarabo. Ha ba qeta bona ba ba reno a le sa le useful, re a le ntsha. Ke ka o ma capital bo Oppenheimer ke bua jena in public because a hona ntho ba ka ngetsang yona, ba tseba le bona ntho ena ke public knowledge. Ba funda the opposition parties against our movement. So I can understand in ena why but ba fundang o ritswe mo mmusong, ba funda hore ska ba le development ya setjhaba sa rona. Ha re qeta re ba etse ditšhomi tsa rona, re ile ho buisana le bona, re dule le bona tafuleng mo e leng hore ba renegotiate the status quo and an economic paradigm is under their control. Comrade, we have to end it. We have to end it, comrade, by working against the control of our liberation movement by so-called GNU partners, particularly this organization called the DA, and those that were part of the Moonshot Pact, who were fully funded, or in the main, funded by the Oppenheimer family. Kaofela abo. The guy checkela to the public. I can see why we still are obsessed with them. But it's staying batuba. Yeah, omungar bari loyal. Yes, uchor bari loyal. Because ntse ba re tseng yona e golo, re hlola ya o tloa o bona. And tšhelete ba e sebedisang bona ba Oppenheimer, ba ithotse kae? Ka tshotlo e ba e entseng go batho ba rona mo South Africa. Ba e sebedisa against setjhaba sa rona. These are things that we must reject and condemn as a liberation movement. Again, comrade, Chris Hani was a committed internationalist. The comrade spoke earlier on here about internationalism. Ke buile hape hore Chris Hani o kile a dula ko Lesotho, kile a dula ko Tanzania, ko Zambia, ko Soviet Union, everywhere else. A tshwarwa ko Botswana, a lwantsha mmuso wa apartheid after the Wankens Polilo operation. A operator even in that place nonetheless. So kajeno lena lefatshe le fetohile. Le bao ba bang ba rona ba ne ba na re ke tšhomi tsa bona ka batla ke ba khotsi ba bona ba tla sebedisana mo le bona ba ba jigetse. Neoliberalism ya putlama, and I putlama o hlaela ntho e re bitsa hore ke neo-fascism. Kore fascism ke ntho e ne hlaelle le nazism e tliswa ke Hitler le Mussolini wa ko Germany le Italy. Ane ba tloetsa ntwa ya lefatshe ya bobedi. Mo e le hore batho ba more than 10 million ba ile ba hlokala. And in fact, by more than 15 million, 10 million of them in the Soviet Union, ba ko Russia. Kika o comrades. O bona bo capital. But one of us too much. The fight against Nazism and fascism was won by the Soviet Union, not by America, not by Britain, not by Europe. It was won by the Soviet Union. General Zhukov, under the leadership and command of Joseph Stalin, General Secretary of the Communist Party and leader of the Soviet Union, actually even gave them a special period to defeat Hitler after they dared reach almost Moscow. That's part of the reason why, for instance, our General Secretary could not be found his grave at one point, because when the German forces entered Moscow, they dug trenches even on the grave sites in order to defend the city of Moscow. So as a consequence, comrade, the West is now lying about the victory against Nazism and fascism. But the main role players was the Soviet Union, the Russians. Today, the European countries and the West want to celebrate Victory Day as their own Victory Day. When they celebrate Victory Day, in which communist cadres were in the forefront to defend humanity, they don't even invite the Russians. How hypocritical are they? So we have to end this hypocrisy. But today we see the rise of neo-fascism coming from the towers of America, the new center of neoliberalism, launched by Donald Trump. But what is important about that thing is that it is disintegrating neoliberalism as we know it today. The centers of capital are in crisis today. The last few weeks, I've never seen something like that. The so-called markets, they've been in topsy-turvy. They've been going up and down. At one point, in just a couple of days, we lose 7.2 trillion US dollars. Now, $7.2 trillion. South Africa is a continent. I know the market lose fella in 2 days. One, bu capital bu haile economy ya lefaufau. Economy ya maka. That's why economy ya teng value ya teng ya putlama ya nyoloa every single day. Ko di marakeng. I see value a concrete. Ke ka rona tlamele re ikagele economy ya rona a concrete based on the needs of the people. Of course, it is in this regard, comrade, that as we see the ruling class turning to racism, to be racist, to authoritarianism, to chauvinism ideologies, and defending their wealth and privileges across the world, led by this Donald Trump, we must protect the downtrodden of the world as a liberation movement. It is in this regard, comrade, that our leaders who want to justify themselves to be our leaders, who are part and parcel of the GNU. Even for this sole reason, that the leaders of the DA, even the Patriotic Alliance, can cavort with the Israeli regime, they don't deserve to be leaders of our people, by whatever measure possible. So we must give solidarity to the people of Palestine. We must give solidarity to the people of Cuba, who are resisting illegal blockade of their country, and while defending socialism and building socialism in their own country. It's a country that every one of you must visit before you die, Cuba. It's a special country. It doesn't matter that since 1961, the US government imposed an economic blockade against that country. But they've implemented socialism. They've educated their people. They are feeding their people. Now they are denied. If you they buy food from you, you send it by a ship. The US government doesn't allow that ship to enter the US for the next 6 months. ke batho ba re batla go ba etsa ditšhomi tsa rona. Cuba, that trained our people, especially our MK Special Force. The last Special Force was trained in Cuba. That fought in the Northern Front in Angola. These were our comrades. Now, our solidarity with Cuba remains important. The liberation of Namibia could not have been so easily possible. Of course, the gallant fighters of Namibia made it possible. But the Cubans stood with us in fighting the apartheid regime in Angola to make it possible after the Kitokwana Valley battle that the apartheid regime was defeated and the UN had to intervene, and ultimately the people of Namibia became free. And we also became free because of the Cubans. Now, on our solidarity with the Cubans, the right-wing forces take our government to court. Government then folds its hand. How can a democratic and revolutionary government fold its hand when Cuba is having food shortages because of imperialism, because of the American blockade? Because we are afraid of the right-wingers taking us to court. Let's restart the process so that we can give appropriate aid to Cuba as a government. They gave us aid, they paid the supreme sacrifices, their people died in the trenches fighting for our liberation. What kind of a liberated society doesn't value the sacrifices of those who were in the struggle? That's why, my comrade, whenever I speak about this question particularly, I get irritated because we have our comrades from Umkhonto we Sizwe that today are still suffering. They are not looked after by their own government. Many speeches of no consequence. These are people who were prepared to die for the liberation of their people. They gave up everything. They are not being looked after. Now, it should not be our democracy that functions in that way. Therefore, comrades, we must continue to give solidarity with the people of Western Sahara who are still denied their basic right to self-determination and independence by a government coordinating with France and Spain, the government of Morocco. We must give solidarity, practical solidarity, with the people of Western Sahara. In this regard, we also want to congratulate our comrade and dear friend, Comrade Mohamed Baysat, who was the ambassador of Western Sahara in South Africa, who has just been appointed Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Sahrawi People's Republic just this week. We are looking forward to work with them quite actively. His entire life has been in the struggle. I know him from the youth movement. He's now an old man, young old man like me. He's old in the struggle. But we wish him well. We want equally to give solidarity as part of fighting this international neo-fascism and neo-Nazism to the alliance of the Sahel states, the people of Burkina Faso, that's the people of Thomas Sankara, now with Comrade Traore, the people of Mali, the people of Niger, who are fighting for genuine African independence from foreign domination. They are showing us today how it can be done. And what I'm happy about it is that those who are leading this are young people. This is very encouraging. They are young people. They are confronting imperialism. They need our solidarity, those young people from the Sahel region. They are leaders in their own right. Of course, you know, every time I see that Captain Traore, the youth love him a lot, the youth of Africa. He's a real African leader. It's very simple. He has launched a program in their country on how to be independent. The first task, one of the first few programs that he imposed was to take ownership of the mines of the country, to be under local control, to produce basic things for their own hospital, for their own transport in their own country, not to buy these things from Europe. That's how people free themselves. You cannot liberate yourself from imperialism and still be controlled by imperialism only on a leash and call yourself free. How do you call yourself free on a leash? It's like a dog that is moving and you are holding the leash. If it wants to go this way, you pull it back. And that dog, because it can run in front of you, it thinks that it is free. That cannot be freedom for our people. Freedom must be reflected in the quality of life of our people. It is in this regard, comrade, that we must also support the freedom struggle for the people of Swaziland and call for peace in Sudan. Because even this war in Sudan, it's a war of imperialism that is transported in our shores. And of course, we should reject the role of the United Nations and NATO in fueling global instability. They are fueling wars and militarizing neocolonialism in Africa, in the Middle East, as well as in Latin America. In other words, they are refusing these countries to be free by force. That is why if you go to Latin America, for instance, an independent socialist state of Venezuela, where I've seen in practice one of the biggest socialist systems being built organically in practice in Venezuela. They are throttling that particular country. They have taken over its oil wells. The Venezuelans are fighting to have back their oil wells. They have even dedicated one of their oil wells to give it to South Africa in the memory and respect of President Nelson Mandela. They have said to our people, use this well. We give it to you as South Africa. We can't use it because Retaba America. But here's the secret. An American corporate company called Chevron, it's allowed to drill the wells in Venezuela without sanctions. But if we go there, we'll be sanctioned by the Americans. The Americans have built more than 28 refineries in their own country, only of Venezuelan oil. They take the entire oil through Chevron to their country. All oil products are then manufactured in America. Venezuelans must live in poverty. When they want their refineries back, they've got more than 4,200 filling stations called PDVSA in America, named after the Venezuelan oil company, PDVSA. We call it PDVSA. They control it. If we were to work with Venezuela directly as a government through Petro SA or whatever state entity that we create, we will sell petrol at more than half the price that we are selling it today in this country. Akusho mina, kusho i-arrangement engaba khona ngoba bayasipha kodwa asifuni. That's the problem. Asifuni. Why? So we are punishing our people and increase the cost of living of our people because we don't want to be independent. Because the imperialists say so. So we can never call ourselves free in this regard. The last point, comrade, let me raise this question of... so we reaffirm in this regard our solidarity with the people of Venezuela. At the same time, we call for the end of the imperialist war in Ukraine. And we think that the collective Europe, which has now mobilized military budgets to try and fight the Russian Federation, they will not win that war. The only thing that neo-fascist of the USA, Donald Trump, has recognized is the fact that he cannot challenge Russia head-on. Russia has advanced weaponry in military technology. It's the most advanced scientific society in the world, Russia. This was achieved by socialism, by the way. But of course, it belongs to the Russian people today, even if there's no more socialism. So they can annihilate the entire world, particularly America, on a one-on-one fight. They don't want to do that. But Europe is doing all it can to raise militarism, and in other words, the industrial military complex, to create military capitalists. That's why they are fueling this war with Ukraine. It's a war against collective West. It's not just Russia's war against Ukraine. It's a special military operation to defend the Russian border. le iketsetse mo le dulang teng, in your own communities, in small way, but sustainable way, in small way that create alternative means of livelihoods, in small way that makes you independent, not reliant to factions, not controlled by criminals, but independent as a people. Mulokulukuona, we are program ya rona. O tlo tala mo Northwest. We are program e re dumelaneng ka ona le moaledi wa makomonisi. Ke wa national. Re tla di provinces tse kaofela. Re tlo fitla di districts tse kaofela. Ba bang ba mmuso, hobane khale re bua ka ona ntwena, mara re sa kene hantle. Re tla di village tse ding tsa country ya rona re etsa example. Re bono re ya kgonahala ntwena, re ai expand. Ka ba bang ba mmuso ba batla utswa idea ena. Re itse o bona, ha rena taba ha ba etsa ntwe re batlang ho etsa. Re a ithabela ntweno. Hobane o bontsha hore ntwe re batlang ho etsa e right, e hlakile, e hantle for setjhaba. Jwale ha ba etse le bona. Mara ya rona re tlo etsa e be rooted. Itsipelele ka Setswana. Ke yona ntho ena. Itsipele. Ibe mass rooted organic product ya setjhaba. Elori, it doesn't matter what government comes in, it cannot be stopped. Jwale program ena re dumelana le ba Central Committee ban local lots. Ke lo e leader je ka General Secretary. Ba itse re ile ikala mo Moses Kotane district ya Communist Party. A re launch. Jwale ke lo spenda beke kaofela in that area, in a single place or two villages. But I'm going to stay in one place for a week. Ribonsor, how to resolve community problems without the government. Comrade, let me clarify this thing. We are not the Messiah in doing these things. We are not going to bring magic. We are going to bring people's ideas, work together with them, and make them realizable. Hari in the village. Retreat ashore in every household in that village. Ultimately, everyone in that community uta self-reliant. So leba ruteileng re ababata those engineers makomreki ba ne re bua kantle ai ke ya mo re ka Moses Kotane ke a lebata lebeteng, because there will be practical engineering issues that we will need. Re batla le dingaka batho ba kaofela lebeteng a ke lo launcha program ena. Ke lo dula beke mono le setjhaba ha ke tsamaya ke ya districting ye nngwe mo South Africa. Provincial Secretary wa rona o etsa sure program yenu ha iphutlame ibile yena u leader makomonisa province o ya districting ye nngwe mo provinceng a etsa same thing e ke entse mo le Moses Kotane. And hape a tsamaya mo le nna ke tsamaya mo ke ya districting ye nngwe maloko a Central Committee aka Loana ya di districting tse ding kaofela mo South Africa. We are building and rolling people's socialism on the ground. No apology, no negotiations with everybody. It's a program of the working class for their own independence. Ricardini. Therefore, aribatli banana ngure tukulo ya rona it's reliant on association with some organizations. No. Tukulo ya rona is reliant on the working class. That's why we don't mobilize the working class on the base of their problems and by the solution to their own problems. That's where we are moving. It is therefore, comrades, in this regard that practically even our changer policy ya mmuso mo South Africa or policy ya mmuso o tlhokomele setšhaba le mo semphatong sa rona o alliance re tlo re configure alliance re change ka borona a re sa tlo ncenga baetapele ba mokgatlo o mongwe gore ba re naanele ba naanele setšhaba ba naanele batho ba hlopheileng a e sa tlo etsala ntho eno re fetile mono rona ntho e re etsang ke o sebetsa le setšhaba mmuso wa o le teng tje ka ditšholo re tla sebetsa le ona. We are not the messiahs. We will work with the community to resolve their problems. And ane re bua le macomrade ba qadileng program mono ke ba bontshitse gore ntho eno ba qadileng e ntle e ka ba lokolla without mmuso. After re buile ba bone gore ntho eno ya kgonala. We are going to do it now on a large scale. This is the movement for socialism in our country. It is in this regard, comrade, that those of comrades who are trying to intimidate our comrades in the alliance, I just have one message for them. The first thing is that stop what you are doing. Stop threatening our comrades, removing them from their deployment in government on the basis of alliance relations. Including Limona Maike. Banjwetse ma comrade ba rona hore comrade wa rona o ntshiwa setulong o tswa ke le communist. Go botlaela bo jwang bo. I mean, a o sana degeneration e fetang mono. O ntsha motho setulong ba ke le communist. Wena a o ntsha le communist setulong o tshwara o le capital le fitelletseng o mo oppressor wa setšhaba. Wena o tlamehile o motswe o na le gore o tswa ma communist. Jwale re o ma comrade firstly. This thing of intimidating our comrades must come to an end. And to think that you have the right to intimidate, it's a stupid idea to come in of it, actually, to think about it proper. That we're not allowed to have violence against others. But now they have no right to defend themselves. This thing must be rejected with the contempt that it deserves. No one must be threatened. You must remain in the African National Congress. It's our own organization. Comrade Madota, we are not leaving the African National Congress. We are not leaving the alliance. We are asserting our own independence as an independent organization of the working class. This assertiveness and assertion, comrades, it's for socialism. Because we are now saying we can no longer live under capitalist barbarism when we know there's socialist development that we can go for. That is why, comrades, we are saying to even our comrades in the Communist Party, those of you in the ANC, don't bargain your presence in the ANC by condemning the objectives of the Communist Party. You are members of the ANC in your own right. And in fact, I can say this openly. It's not a secret. I've said it to some of our comrades, but no, comrade Nopala, please don't donate us. I can say, almost without, we've got one good comrade here in this province. It's my dear comrade, my dear doctor, medical doctor. That comrade is the only one amongst our members who openly says he doesn't want to join the African National Congress. But our overwhelming members are members of the ANC in their own right. We can give them, all these members, the ANC. We can give them this, all members, and rebuild the Communist Party. This is not a donation. It's just to say to the ANC, if you think you're going to expel these members, we have got 350,000 members as the Communist Party. Overwhelmingly, apart from 1,000 or so, are members of the ANC. You're going to divide yourself right in the middle. Allow us to practice our independence. We are not a league of the ANC. And this independence, we will practice it, comrade, because we have realized that we cannot send someone to go and struggle for socialism on our behalf. We have to struggle for socialism on our own, and we are taking this responsibility. There's no confusion there. And therefore, comrade, in honor of Comrade Chris Hani, we say, let's do it for Chris Hani and build popular fronts of the workers, the unemployed, women, youth, and community structures where we stay. Because even this decision that we have taken to contest 2026 local government elections, very important decision. This decision is non-negotiable. It has passed that stage. We negotiated it for 22 years. This decision is non-negotiable, comrades. We must therefore establish SACP branches as centers of grassroots community work and mobilization, so that we can organize for dignity, for food security, for community-owned stores, for clean water, for safe schools, and for public health. And I must tell you something. When we went to these villages that we were building, we were working with, for food security, the first problem we encountered is that the communities do not have water. In some areas we said, okay, if you do not have water, let's organize water for you. We organized boreholes, just using our power as a Communist Party to talk to people. That's the only power that we have. We don't have money. So we can't give you money. We can't buy you. And don't accept people who are buying you to do political work. We don't have that money. But we said to the communities, no, if the problem is water, let's organize water. We sort out the problem of water. We organize boreholes for our communities. In some areas, it's the municipalities that are refusing us to put boreholes for the people. I have said to our people, they must defy any municipality that refuses them to put boreholes for the people. I want that leader in that particular community, that government leader that will stop us from putting a borehole for the people. We will never accept that nonsense. Because some comrades say, even one of our comrades in one of the provinces said, yeah, comrade, it's under the district municipality. It's controlled by us. I listen to this thing, it's no, man. These are the bureaucratized comrades, misdeployment. They should not be in government, those ones. We are putting boreholes where necessary in our communities that do not have water, so that they can use that water to drink and also to make food for themselves. We have said, let's do food gardens in our communities, in our households, particularly those houses that have got fences. We have seen a good project here in Marikana, for instance, with the MDA. The Marikana Development Agency, Youth Development Agency as well. They are doing wonderful stuff, working together with the NUM and getting some support from all over. They have even employed a brilliant doctor, PhD scholar on agriculture, who's helping the people, who's monitoring crops by drones. We can do that in our villages. These are not unimaginable things. These are basic things that we can do. We have seen it in different places where we have been, in Kutama, in Limpopo, for instance, where food production can sustain a community. One old lady has taken her children to university because they were not being given the NESFA scholarship by rearing pigs and other things. We will do this for our communities free of charge, your own livelihood guaranteed, no state development. What we cannot accept is bureaucratization of development by a hijacked state, by capital. We will allow our people to roll out development for themselves in the best way possible, as long as they are guaranteed for their livelihoods. And therefore, we will campaign for people's democracy, one that puts the working class in charge in our communities. This must also be reflected later on when we go into the budget. And therefore, the core of this will be around local community struggles. You cannot be a communist. Your community is having a protest against water. You are not in that struggle, because the municipality is led by our comrades in government, in the ANC, because the ANC is leading all of the alliance in government. Then Ufila would see, when you join them, you are joining a campaign against the ANC. No. A campaign for water doesn't care who's in government. Our people must have water. It doesn't matter who's in government. Our people must have proper roads and everything else that they deserve. This is the kind of grassroots activists and communists that we want today. It is in this regard that, comrade, we can reignite the spirit of Comrade Chris Hani, the General Secretary of our party, the leader of our own movement, the African National Congress. And therefore, we say to Chris Hani, may his undying memory live on to inspire a new generation of our cadres and of our community who understand that socialism is the only and the best alternative to capitalist barbarism. So in other words, it is either socialism or capitalist barbarism. And for some of us, it's socialism or death. But we know that victory will be certain in this country. We will succeed. We will win it. And we in the Communist Party must rededicate ourselves by changing the manner in which we do political work. Political work is not for CVs. Political work is to achieve human civilization. The new human civilization that is upon us is in our hands. As Moses Kotane would have said, the future is in your hands and it will be what you make of it. He was making this call particularly to our young people, that at this hour of destiny, the future is in your hands and it will be what you make of it. The working class of this country, I repeat what General Secretary of the party, Moses Kotane, leader of our revolution, said. At this hour of destiny, the future is in your hands and it will be what you make of it. Leave government. Don't run after government. Bourgeois governments are not meant for the people. They are meant for the elite. If you can't transform it, find alternative mechanisms. There are many of those mechanisms. They are there on the locality, on the ground. We will find them. We will work with you on them. We will succeed. But the government remains the government of the people. We must still make them accountable. We are not saying we are anti-government. But the current government has been stolen. That's the unfortunate part in our revolution. Amanda! Long live Comrade Chris Hani, long live! Thank you.